Pure emotion is chaos, and pure logic is death. The question is, which one is driving, and how do you know? What's poppin', guys? Easy with the chops. Before we get into it for real, I just want to say I apologize for, number one, my voice. A little bit sick right now, but the show must go on. Number two, these transitions that I haven't worn since I was like 15. I left my real glasses at the crib, had to use the backups. Let's get into it anyways. So concerning logic versus emotion, even just saying versus as if it implicates that one has to be in control over the other, one has to dominate over the other. Logic steers and emotion usually signals. I always like to say when I'm talking to people about like how I make my decisions and like really how I basically live my life as far as like decision making and taking things into account, because that's basically all life is a bunch of decisions. When it comes down to logic versus emotion, excuse my duck and goose friends, having a meeting obviously. When it comes down to logic, I feel like logic is basically the intention of wanting things to make sense. And to be clear, let's look it up. The definition of logic is reasoning conducted according to principles of validity. So what makes sense in layman terms? A lot of the times, and I'm not going to get into gender polarization and things like that, because we're all humans at the end of the day, and we can take lessons from everything despite what we might term as our biological leanings and pre-programming and all this stuff. That doesn't matter. We're humans, we're people. A lot of the times the effort into making sense can become robotic and stale. And the full leaning into what feels good, which would be satiating our emotions, can become chaotic, eventful, but not stable. And that is the nature of each thing. So when emotion tries to steer, things usually become more reactive, volatile, chaotic, and manipulatable, which is extremely unstable. And ultimately serving your emotions asks you the question of, do you want things to make sense or do you want them to feel good? Now, emotions carry a lot of validity in human existence. We're not robots. We have this internal system that's physiologically ingrained and intertwined into our being. And so it's not something we should ignore. I believe that emotions are signals. Emotions tell us things, but they do not tell us what to do. They merely alarm us or alert us to something. So for example, emotions, feelings. What is a feeling? If I touch a stove and it is hot, I get burned. The burning sensation is a signal. My skin is being damaged. My cells are being destroyed. That is a signal. It does not tell me now here's what I should do, because there's no form to emotion. Emotions are extremely free. Emotions are extremely abstract. And it's a beautiful thing to have those qualities. But if you live your life only based off of steering your decisions off of emotion, you can quickly get lost in yourself and in others. Now, when logic is the only thing that signals you, you can become extremely robotic, disconnected, almost inhuman and like brittle. That's where we have people who sometimes lean towards brutal honesty, or people who are almost so pragmatic that it seems like they don't actually care about how their fellow man, their fellow human experiences them or the decisions they make. They're only concerned on the equation of things, the binary breaking down of decisions in a way that's explainable and makes sense. And that's a noble cause in the sense that things being able to make sense makes sense. I mean, what else can you say about it? But you're ignoring and sterilizing the essence of humanity and being and connection when you only allow logic to signal you. Because if something doesn't make sense, that's the only time that calls you to action. Otherwise, things are basically running as they should be, like a well-oiled machine, but you're missing a very, very important component and aspect of human existence. You can rationalize emotion. You can make your emotions make sense if you understand that at the end of the day, they are signals. They're not instructions. They're not a call to immediate decisions, but they tell you something needs to happen, not what needs to happen. That is an amazing starting point, though. You need that. You should never ignore that. That is an integral part of being a human. You shouldn't rationalize with your emotions. You should rationalize with your emotions. If you're an emotional person and you feel deeply, use that to your advantage. Use that to push you into making decisions that make sense, but also balance you in a way that you're not living chaotically and almost hedonistically. We can take the emotivist, emotional aspect very deeply. There's a level to it where simply you can say what feels good can make sense. Simple as that. Conversely, you can also feel your way into logic. Just like how I said, what feels good should make sense. What makes sense should also feel good at a level. You know, you shouldn't sterilize yourself to the point of only doing something that can be explained fully and only doing things that have a linear structure, basically, a start, a middle, a finish. I think the important thing that we should think about when we think about these things is what is holding the wheel, what's steering me, what's directing me, what's guiding me. Because lean too far in one direction and the imbalance can be pretty palpable. And I feel like a part of life is finding that balance. Some decisions we make purely off of emotion. Some decisions we make purely off of rationality and logic. But there is a Venn diagram where they overlap. I try to live my life in a way that they overlap more often than not, because I believe that harmony and synergy in such important aspects of humanity, they just make life subjectively better. I'll say better because someone might look and say, well, that's a lot of thinking. I don't want to think that much. I'd rather just feel. Or someone might say, oh, you're too emotional. I just want things to make sense. And to either of those people, subjectively, their life choice and style is their own. At the end of the day, you don't kill emotion to think clearly, and you don't kill logic to feel deeply. You just need to know who's driving, because the wrong one will crash you every time.